What's going on? I'm just kind of thinking, what is the biggest difference between nice guys, good guys, bad boys, thugs, or whoever you want to consider? And the most telling thing I think that you can actually consider is the guy's level of patience. A person with no patience is probably going to be a bad boy. A thug, person with kind of like an equal amount of patience, good and bad, is probably going to be a so-called good guy. And then you got your nice guy, which is going to be more than likely, he's going to have more patience than the other guys. The reason why I believe he has more patience is because he can afford to have more patience than other guys, because he hadn't necessarily been through as much heartache as the other guys, or wasn't raised that particular way. But each guy is going to have their specific level of patience, and depending on the type of woman you are, I think that is what you should really look for in a particular man, is what is the level of patience he has. And a second thing to consider is how they make decisions, especially with relationships. A bad boy, he's probably not going to consider anything you think about. A good guy, he's going to depend on what his experiences is, but it's going to be deeply determined by his experiences. So you can get a whole bunch of different situations come out of that. But when you deal with a nice guy, it's going to be his idea. And I think probably the biggest difference between him and the other people is his decision making isn't based on just trying to be nice. His decision making is based on trying to do the right thing by you and by him. And so he does not necessarily discard your feelings. He can't do that, and his decisions has to take your decisions in consideration, your feelings, stuff like in consideration. And ideally, he'll do one or two things. He's either going to ask you about it, or he's just going to accomplish it and then maybe tell you about it, depending on the situation. But I think if you really want to be in a safe relationship, somebody that's going to consider your feelings, a nice guy is the way to go. But also, I think there's a misconception that a nice guy is not necessarily a protector. And the difference between a nice guy and a bad boy, both extremes, is a bad boy, he'll only defend you more than likely if it's somehow going to affect him. Depending on the guy, of course, because you got certain bad boys that used to be nice guys. You got bad boys who used to be good guys. You got bad boys who are raised to be bad boys. And you have a lot of different spectrums to look at when you deal with bad boys. With a nice guy, the difference between him and a bad boy is a nice guy knows the difference between good and bad. And he makes a decision to do good most of the time, if not all the time, as much as possible, as depending on his experience, because sometimes the situation just is not going to be good regardless. It depends on the other person. A bad boy is going to make decisions, more than likely it's going to be selfish for him first, and then occasionally he might make some good decision for you. But that's just part of the extreme. It's almost like a drug, you know. is there, maybe, but his limited time of being there with you makes up for the time when he's not with you. Whereas a nice guy will be with you most of the time. And if you're raised to value absence, or I should say, you're raised to value the short bursts of good times with a bad boy, as opposed to the long, consistent bursts, or time frames with a nice guy, your idea of a good relationship is going to be messed up because 95% of the time that bad boy is not there. But you judge or you look at the good guy based on 95% of the time he's there and judge him compared to the 5% of the time that the bad boy is there. And so he really can't compete with that because usually the bad boy is there because he wants to be there at that particular time and he wants something, so he's going to do what needs to be done for you to get what he wants. And so that little bit of time is going to be awesome. But the other 95% of the time, you're going to be lonely, wondering where he at, all this other stuff. And so life is interesting. And in life, you got to be able to choose what's good. Let's just say like food. Healthy food is always going to stick with you, make you healthy. It's going to make you live longer. Fast food is going to take you out a whole lot quicker. It's going to make you gain weight. And a good guys like healthy food, or nice guys like healthy food. But a bad boy is like eating fast food all the time. It tastes good for that moment, but in the long run, it's going to basically take you out. And so that was just my thoughts on that. Um, but I do think patience is probably the biggest indicator of the type of guy you're with. If he has very little patience, he's probably more on the bad boy spectrum. If he has a lot of patience, he's probably on the nice guy spectrum. And then anybody in between that, you can get anything. You can get from, um, you know, a little bit more patience, or you can have a bad boy who's got a little bit more patience. Um, and so, or I'd say the good guy, he could have not as much patience, you know what I'm saying? He could be less patient than straight up bad boy. And a bad boy could be a little bit more patient than a straight up bad boy. And so you really got to be knowledgeable. And ideally, you would know yourself better. If you know yourself and you know what you need in a relationship, you'd be able to determine the type of guy you should be with. That being said, if you base your relationship on another woman's successes, desires, you're basically cutting yourself short. And that is the wrong way to be looking for a relationship or at a relationship or determine how to value a relationship. So know yourself, know what you like in a particular man, or learn that, based on who you deal with and date. And never ever just put down a man for any reason just because you find something you don't like about him. The goal is to find out what you do like. And that don't mean you gotta like the person. You're just looking for what you see in that person that you actually like. So don't treat dating like some random quest just to find food or tell somebody no. It really should be something you should take serious so that you can actually learn more about yourself and what you actually need in a spouse. But that's what all I got. Take care.